Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. My name is Olaomi. I'll be taking you through the introduction to Scrum Ceremonies. Like I said earlier, I'll try not to bore you. Just take you through the journey, and I expect us to be interactive, at least most likely towards the end. But I'll just take you through what Scrum Ceremonies are about. I also tell people that even if you have some ideas about it, just try and listen carefully, pick what you can, and then write out what you can, note what you can. You can always fall back on the videos if you need clarity. So, welcome to Blue Sky. Um, just ground rules. Please try to mute yourself so you don't interrupt the session. If you have questions, you ask at the end of the session. Thank you. So, this is what we'll be covering tonight. We'll be covering Agile project management, just the intro and frameworks in Agile. This I'll try to wrap up in 5 minutes. Most times when I start, before I know it, I'm already spending 30 minutes on these two sessions because I'm trying to lay a very serious background. But I feel sometimes we can also actually do self-learning in some of these things. So I'll just give you, a bit of this, and then we'll go to the main focus of today, which is the Scrum ceremonies. So all this first four is just to lay a bit of foundation for your understanding and clarity. Please mute yourself. Thank you. So we're going to go through the Agile project management. We're going to go through frameworks in Agile, just very briefly. Then what Scrum is, what the empirism in Scrum is, and then we'll go for the main topic of the day, what Scrum ceremonies are, and the ceremony itself. So I'll be timing myself so that I can work within time. I'm assuming I'm starting 9 on the dot. Okay, so what is Agile project management? So anytime you hear about Agile project management, there are two words you will always, always, always hear. You hear iteration, you hear incremental, anything relating to Agile, Scrum, you'll be hearing iteration, incremental. I'll try to give us a breakdown of what these things are. It's just words. All these things are buzzwords. We'll learn, it will become part of us. We'll be using it day to day, so it will mean, something clear to us as we go on. So what is Agile project management? Please mute yourself. Agile project management is an iterative approach of delivering projects. So when we say iteration, firstly, just in a simple dictionary meaning, iteration is repetition. So when you repeat a process, something you do over and over and over again is called iteration. People use it interchangeably with sprints. They almost mean the same thing. So we always just leave it and say, okay, they're the same thing. So sprint is like iteration. But the truth is they're slightly different, but let's leave the difference. They just mean the same thing. They're working hand in hand. So iteration is in Scrum is like you're saying a time box of things you do like during a development process. So you do things continuously, repetition in a development process. So it varies from team to team. It can be 1 week to 4 weeks. That's the given, in quotes, Scrum. That's the given Scrum duration for a sprint or an iteration. So it's between 1 to 4 weeks, but the standard, not even, but the standard is usually 2 week sprint. So if you notice, so if you check your calendar, you see that we have 2 week sprint on all our sprints, two-week sprints, because that's the standard. Most organizations use 2 week sprint. Some organizations use hybrid of more than whatever works for the team, and that should be really what it should be. What works for your team is what you use. So I'll give a very good example of myself. In my team, we use 3 week sprints, and that's because we've sat down as a team. We've noticed that the work we do would take a bit more time than for us to be cutting off every 2 weeks. So we extended our sprint to 3 week sprint. But once you've started a 3 week sprint at the start of a project, one of the rules is most likely just leave it as it is. Yes, you can always adapt and change, probably when you're changing into a new project within your team and all that. But if not, just leave it standard as it is. So, but one of the reasons people usually just elongate their sprint, but not in my own case. One of the reasons is usually because of maybe limited opportunities to get in touch with stakeholders and all that. So instead of doing that, they just fall back and do a 3-week sprint or a 4-week sprint. But let's leave that aside. Agile project management as a focus is iterative approach of delivering a project through its life cycle. So Agile helps the team deliver value to their customers faster. Is one thing you should know about Agile. I will not talk about traditional and all that because it usually will now make me delve into it too much. But in project management, one of the most prominent approaches is agile project management, and the other one is the waterfall, which we'll refer to as the traditional way. So that one, you just do it like on a straight line basis. Just you finish your planning. After your planning, you start executing. When you're done with all those, you do your testing, and that's it. But you see, for agile, we do it bit by bit, and that makes you deliver faster. I'll explain with the picture beside it. So there's constant collaboration with stakeholders, and there's continuous improvement in every phase. So just like this picture, let's look at the first one that is cancelled. So a customer came to us and say they want, let's use as the picture is, they want us to build a pink convertible car. That's what the customer wants. So in the first sprint, we built just the tire. Now, if we call the customer in Agile and say we've built a tire for you, what do you think the customer will do with the tire? Mhm. It's not there's no value in it. When you show a customer, oh, I've done tire, there's not much value in it. If you think about it properly, would the customer take the tire and be rolling it on the floor? What would the customer do? The customer cannot move from point A to point B with a tire. If the customer tries to do that, you even exert yourself. Walking will just be easier for you. Same as the second one, they now built two tires with a base. What will the customer do with two tires and a base? It will not move. The third one, yes, they've done the body, they've done the tire, but it's not even going to move either. But at the fourth level, yes, we built the car. Please do not get me wrong. It's not a bad approach because you finally built the car. But what excites the customer all through the journey? Nothing. And that's not agile. But in agile, this is how agile thinks. At every sprint, at every iteration, we need to give something of value to the customer. Now, if you see the picture in front of us, the one that is below, the first pictures, the customer wants a car. But what does the customer need the car for? For movement from point A to point B. Now, if I give you a skateboard, you cannot, if you look around, you see people even moving around with skateboards. It helps you move faster. It is actually valuable, but that's not really the end value of what the customer wants. But at least the skateboard can move the customer from one junction to another. After a while, we went back to work and came back with a um 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 a speed. Why is this name going off my head? A scooter, yeah. So we came out with a scooter. Trust me, you can imagine if it was even an electronic scooter, the customer can actually move for a far length. It can move from one area to another area, even with a skate. It's a skate. So after that, we created a bicycle for the customer. This time around, the customer can sit down, can move from place to place. It's of value to the customer. Then we created a power bike for the customer. The customer can definitely move from one city to another with the power bike. But at the same time, the customer might want to, sit down, be more relaxed. And the end goal that will now put a full smile on the customer's face is the car. So we have created value iteration upon iteration for the person to get a car. That's what Agile is preaching. Doing things iteratively and in an incremental way. So when we say anything, when you hear incremental in Agile, we're talking of increase, addition, just as the word is. And that's one beauty I also tell people, please take this away tonight. Most times, the buzzwords we use in Agile actually almost mean their English meaning. Like when we say incremental, they're saying you're increasing something. When we say iterative, it means we are repeating something. So we're just repeating, we're increasing, we're repeating the process. So I will now go, when we get to the Scrum ceremony, you see the meaning of the repetition of the process as we go. So moving on, really timing myself. So in Agile, somebody asked this question last week where we said frameworks in Agile. So there are lots of frameworks in Agile. Right now, if you ask some people what they're doing, they say, oh, they probably came to learn Scrum. Yes. So we are here for Agile, but Agile is like a bigger umbrella. It's like a bigger framework covering lots of, that is a big methodology rather, covering lots of frameworks. So some of the frameworks in Agile, please can you mute yourself? Some of the frameworks in Agile are Crystal, Safe, TDD, Scrum, XP. When we say XP, XP is Extreme Programming, Kanban, Lean, FDD. But there are some that are very, very popular. And one of the most popular one is Scrum, which we're doing now. Another one is Safe. Bolu, please can you help me with the person? Another one is Safe. Safe is scaled agile. So we're just doing agile in a scaled way. We'll explain this later. Then XP, Extreme Programming, Kanban. A lot of companies use Kanban. Those are people that probably they don't want to break any of their execution. They just keep going. So I won't do all of this. So what is Scrum in itself? Just a moment, I need to mute this person. Okay. So what is Scrum in itself? Scrum is a framework of rules, roles, events, and artifacts. So there are different ideologies about definition of Scrum. Some people say it's 3-5-3 or something, just different things just to, make us understand. And this is a definition from the Scrum Guide. It's a framework of rules. So in Scrum, just rules, the roles, the events, and the artifacts that are used to implement agile projects. That's what Scrum is about. So I will take us through some of the rules, the roles, the events, and the artifacts so that we'll have an understanding of what Scrum is in itself. So it emphasizes teamwork. In Scrum, you work with a team continuously. You're accountable to yourselves as a team, and it's an iterative progress, like I said earlier, repetition, sprint on sprint, towards a well-defined goal. Towards a well-defined goal. So it is an iterative approach consisting of sprints that typically only last 1 to 4 weeks with the objective of continuously improving a product. So I explained earlier with that picture of trying to improve a product, we were going all the way to the car. If you notice in that picture earlier, you see that even when we gave the customer a skateboard, the customer was just neutral. It's not like the customer was smiling. It wasn't what the customer wanted. But we kept increasing what the customer wanted until we got to what the customer achieved at the end of the day. So that's where we say it consists of sprints that the objective is to continuously improve a product. That's what Scrum is about. So we're just going to go just to have an understanding. We can't mention Scrum without mentioning the Scrum Guide. So Scrum Guide, there were about 17 developers. You'll be surprised that it wasn't even people like a Scrum Master or business analyst that created the Scrum Guide. So there are two major guys from the 17 developers. They are developers that actually created the Scrum Guide. So they eventually created a guide on how to, channel our creation and development of products and projects. They did it on their own to help them, work better as a team. So we update this. The Scrum Guide is being updated from time to time. The latest one is in 2020, and the main two guys, that did that out of the developers, Ken and Jeff, they are both developers. So you can always go to Google, put in Scrum Guide. It's like roughly 16 pages. It's something you can read in less than an hour, honestly. It gives you an overview of what Scrum is about. It gives, left with me, is one of the assignments I'm going to give you today. In fact, I'm giving it now. It's a take home. Please go to Google, type Scrum Guide 2020. Don't take the 2018. Take 2020. And there's even one or two improvements between 2020 and now, but just go with the Scrum Guide 2020, read through it, and then we'll speak about this later. It's good for you to have an overview of what Scrum is about. So I'm jumping straight to the empiricism in Scrum. So empiricism in Scrum, when we talk of empirical, they are like, how will I describe it? Like main fundamental elements that makes this process work, the Scrum process. What makes it work is the empiricism. And the three pillars of Scrum are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So, what is transparency? It's like all the aspects of a process that must be visible to everyone. So everybody being involved in that project, everybody controlling that project, everybody working on that project, they must have visibility of what is going on. So I'm using Team Legend, for example, as an example now. In Team Legend, everyone in Team Legend has to have an understanding of the project. They should have visibility, transparency. We don't want to hide somewhere and turn things around. And if somebody probably jumps on your board, they don't even know what is going on. No, everything has to be visible. And one of the things we use to measure visibility in Scrum is our project management tool, for example, our Agile Dev board or our Jira board. So with that, if, for example, a QA in Team Legend is doing something, I as an SM can jump in and I can see what the person is working on. I have clarity as to what the person is working on. If I need one or two questions, I know that is maybe Adiola that is working on that particular ticket. I can reach out to them. So it's clear visibility. So it's giving visibility to the significant aspect of the project to those responsible for the outcome. So who are the people responsible for all this outcome? All the stakeholders. And guess what? You are a stakeholder. Everyone in your team is a stakeholder. The whole development team, which we refer to as developers now, they are all stakeholders. Everybody involved in this project, even the stakeholders, that's I mean the sponsor, the customers and co, they are all stakeholders. Everybody has to have a bit of not a bit, full transparency in whatever we do. Now for inspection, inspection is just in, I told you that most of the words in Agile is just as it is. When we say inspection, what are we talking about? We're saying we're inspecting something. We are checking something frequently. So inspection is timely checks on the progress of the sprint. So how do you do timely checks? You remember I told you about iteration when we do things bit by bit, sprint on sprint. So at the end of every sprint, you do a showcase, you do a demo, you do, when I mean showcase, demo, sprint review, I'm saying the same thing, just interchanging words. They're all the same thing. So you're doing a sprint review. So somebody is inspecting what you have done. Now the adaptation is when that person has finished inspecting what you have done, when they find things that are not really acceptable or they just want to change it, they want to tweak it. So we now apply a form of adjustment to the process. So adjusting the process as soon as possible to minimize any further deviation. So you can imagine that, let's assume it's a lady that ordered for that car and said she wants a car. And maybe at some point we didn't even ask the color of the car. Or let's say we asked her the color of the car and she said she wants a red car. And we build it up to the red. Then she sees the red visibly, and she's like, "Oh no, I don't want a red car. I think you should change it to pink. The red is too bright to my eyes. I want a pink car." We can change that immediately. We're just adapting to the process. Or maybe you're building something. Maybe you're building a website. The person says, "Oh, we want the background of the website to be this. We want that," and the person sees it and sees that, "Oh, you know what, this blue on this background, it doesn't make sense. You know what, can we change it to royal blue or something?" The person can, it can be anything. This is me just even using colors as an example, just to bring it home for our understanding. So basically just adapting to change. One of the main things in Scrum is the flexibility of being able to adapt to changes. So we must always have that at the back of our mind. Sometimes when somebody gives you a change to do in Scrum, you can curse the person in your mind, but never curse the person outside. This is just a joke. Say, for example, you finish doing something and say, "You know what? No, can you change this? Can you tweak this? Can you tweak that?" Scrum immediately, just wear your garment of change and say, "Okay, you know what? How exactly do you want it?" A BA starts getting the description of what the person wants, writes it out, the team has a full understanding of it, and then we go ahead, we execute and bring it out. That's the beauty of Scrum. We don't have to finish building a house before we decide that we want to make a change. We can make a change as the house is being built. Whereas in Waterfall, it won't happen. You have to finish the whole project before you can start tweaking anything most of the time. So, but for Agile, we can change on the go. So that's the beauty. So I just wanted us to touch on empiricism so we have an idea. I targeted a bit of 15 minutes to finish this aspect before we go into the ceremonies. So we're still almost on point, just 2 minutes deviation. So what are Scrum ceremonies? So that's the main purpose of today's call, Scrum ceremonies. What are Scrum ceremonies? So Scrum ceremonies, they are meetings. You can refer to them as meetings, you can refer to them as events, you can refer to them as ceremonies, whichever way. So Scrum ceremonies, they are meetings that are specifically organized to ensure the Scrum team are in sync in executing the development of a product. The product, a project, whatever it is, the team is in sync. So what we're just saying is, in simple terms, I'm trying to break this down to our understanding so that we'll have a good idea of it. So in simple terms, what we're saying is, as soon as we want to start a project, there are several meetings we are going to undergo for us to be able to achieve that project. If somebody gives you a project to do, will you just delve in and start doing it? No. You have to have some ceremonies in order to get specific information, requirements gathering, all those kind of things to put together for us to synchronize as a team to develop that project, to develop that product. So that's what Scrum ceremony is about. So Scrum ceremony, it helps Scrum team get work done in a structured manner. So we're not just going helter-skelter, there's no structure in what we are doing. No, we come together, we discuss in the ceremonies that, okay, let's do things this way, let's change things this way, let's adapt. Remember the word transparency, inspection, adaptation. Okay, you know what? Let's do it this way, let's work out this way. No, I don't agree with this. Okay, you don't agree with this. Okay, which way should we go? Okay, do we all agree? Just here and here, we're just having a discussion in a structured manner through that meeting, through that ceremony, through that event. So it helps the team get work done in a structured manner, and it helps them set expectations, empowers the team to collaborate effectively. All this, let's do it this way, let's do that way, is all collaboration, and of course, to drive results. So basically, the reason for Scrum ceremonies, we're trying to drive results. What are these results? Increment, something of value for a customer, something of value in the project that we have to bring sprint on sprint, sprint on sprint. That being said, so Scrum ceremonies are also done within the context of a sprint. That's why I've been using the word sprint and iteration. Now, what's the purpose of Scrum ceremonies? So some of the purposes, it empowers the team to collaborate effectively. I mentioned that earlier. It helps them set and measure expectation. It provides the team with a framework to carry out assigned tasks. So that framework to carry out assigned tasks, using our board, that's our Azure board, our Jira board, we carry on the tasks, we discuss about it before we carry it on. That's all what we do in the ceremonies. It steers the team towards achieving successful results. So we're now going into what the ceremonies are. In Scrum, we have 4 major ceremonies. Please hear me right. We have 4 major ceremonies and plus 1 to make it 5 that we have to do to have a successful sprint. So the 4 major ones are sprint planning, the daily stand-up, sprint refinement, sprint review, and retrospective is the plus that we have to make all this work out. Now, some school of thought will just go and tell you you have 5 major ceremonies, but other school of thoughts will tell you we have 4. But let's just stick to 5 for clarity's sake, because that is what is obtainable, and why we'll tell you why the 5th one is very important. Okay, so I'll just briefly speak on this just for us to have a mental picture of this. So in a Scrum team, we have the POs, which is the product owner. We have the Scrum Master, and we have the developers. Those are the 3 major people within a team: the PO, the Scrum Master, and the developers. Now, the PO is usually one person, the Scrum Master is usually one person, and then we have developers. You see, there's an S behind the developers. So the developers now encompass a group of development team that forms that developers. Prior now, we call them development team, but in more recent Scrum Guide is referred to as developers. So the developers are the QA, that's the software testers. The developers themselves, there's somebody that's going to develop what you're doing. We usually put the BAs in this rope too, but the B can also stand by the PO. But the BAs too, they form part of that development team. You have UI designers, UI testers. Sometimes it depends on the project you're working on. You might have a DA in your team. You can have different. Apologies about that. Olumide, please mute yourself or we'll send you out of the call, please. Apologies. Okay, so for the developers, like I said earlier, there are lots of people encompassing developers. Some developers, we call them front-end developers, back-end developers, full-stack developers. You know, they all work hand in hand to make sure a development work is done. So the three main participants you'll be seeing is PO, Scrum Master, developers. Now, an ADM will not fall into this category because an ADM is somewhere hovering around here. The ADM is in charge of the delivery of what these people are working on. So you will not see an ADM in the Scrum team, or you can see a DA in the developers, or some projects you will not see a DA there. You can see some designers. It just depends on your project. That's what will make you, have those people in your team. So if you look at all the ceremonies, the common factor in all ceremonies are the team. So this is what encompasses a team in Scrum. A PO is Scrum Master and the developers. So if you see in your sprint planning, the only invitees are the PO, Scrum Master, developers. In daily Scrum, same. In sprint refinement, same. In retrospective, same. But in sprint review, there's an extra foreign body, which is the stakeholders. So the stakeholders are maybe subject matter experts, the sponsor, the customers, anybody that is important to this call is called a stakeholder. And please note that even this team, they are also stakeholders in this project, but we just don't really use the word stakeholder to refer to them because they are called a team. I just want us to have this at the back of our mind as a mental picture of those that will always be involved in a planning. So I'll explain further. The truth is sometimes you can invite anyone for any of the ceremonies if the team agrees that it is appropriate. So even if I'm doing sprint planning, and for reasons beyond me as a PO, I feel we might need maybe a subject matter expert on something, and the team agrees, we can invite the person to join us, actually. Very agreeable. But ideally, these are the set of people that has these meetings. So I'll go to next. Okay. So all Scrum ceremonies, these are major things all Scrum ceremonies must have. All Scrum ceremony must be time boxed, which is the number one rule of a Scrum ceremony. Now, if I go back to the previous slide, you see the time boxing, the duration of all the meetings. So for sprint planning, you have to have sprint planning 4 hours within a 2-week sprint. But need I tell you that most teams just use 2 hours if they've gotten this right. You don't need these 4 hours. Most teams on average use 2 hours, sometimes even an hour, if they know what they're doing. Yeah. So it depends on the amount of work they're doing. But ideally, according to the Scrum Guide, it's 4 hours within a 2-week sprint. Daily stand-up is 15 minutes every day of the sprint. So every working day of a sprint, you have 15 minutes. Now in Blue Sky, our working days per now usually is 7 working days. That means in a sprint you have 14 days. But for reasons beyond us trying not to overwhelm you, for this your cohort, you're the first going to have a 5-day sprint, which is like your regular working environment. So you will be having 10 working days per sprint. So in that 10 working days, you will have your meetings every day. However, on days you have any of these major ceremonies, you don't need to have a stand-up. So on the day of your sprint planning, you do not need to have a stand-up. On the day of your refinement, you do not need to have a stand-up. On the day of your review, you do not need to have a stand-up. Um, retrospective is usually done. Retrospective is usually done um, on the same day as the sprint review. So it's going to be the same day. So you won't be needing. I just realized that I've been interchanging refinement and retrospective earlier. So all I've been saying earlier about the fourth ceremony that is not really part of the ceremony is actually the refinement. Apologies. So these are the duration: 4 hours, 15 minutes. For sprint refinement, it's usually 2 hours within a 2 week sprint. For sprint review, is usually 2 hours within a 2 week sprint. And for retrospective, 1.5 hours. Some people use 2 hours within a 2 week sprint. So we're just specifying 2 week sprint because I thought it's the most common one. So definitely with this now, if we're having a 4 week sprint, for example, you should have refinement for 4 hours. If you're having a 4 week sprint, you should have retrospective for 3 hours. So, but we are using a 2 week sprint as the benchmark, right? So please let me repeat myself. Refinement is actually that ceremony. I said it's the fourth ceremony that is not really part of the ceremonies. But however, we use it because it's very important. And I'll tell you the reason why as we go on. Okay, so next slide, please. I said all ceremonies, they must be time boxed. Anytime you want to do a ceremony, as a scrum master now, let me use the scrum master, and even within the team, you have to be considerate about all the people that will speak within that ceremony. And you have to time the ceremony so that you don't waste people's time. You don't spend the whole day doing a ceremony. So, for example, if you're doing a stand up, please time box it to 15 minutes. 15 minutes it is. Then, truth be told, I'll give another example of myself. I have a team that we're up to 20 something, which is ideally not an agile team. An agile team is 10 plus or minus 2, But some people will tell you 7 plus or minus 2. So, but an agile team, let's just leave it at even 10 people, for example. I have double that size. You don't expect me to really do stand ups for 15 minutes, yeah? So, but I still work on 15 minutes. But on maybe a day within the week, I can now extend and say, you know what, this day we're going to use 30 minutes. So we have a good breakdown of what we are going to do. This is just like an off-cycle conversation, but always focus on your 15 minutes. Anything outside of the 15 minutes, just tell your team if they want to elongate their conversation, can tell them to put the things in the parking lots and all that. You will get to understand these processes as we go. In every team, you have your mentors and bodies that will guide you in this process. At the first time you do it, it might be longer than 15 minutes because you're just trying to get your jig. But after a while, you get used to it, you get better. So don't worry yourself too much. But every meeting must be time boxed. The moment you start the meeting, you're looking at your time as a scrum master, making sure that all the things that needs to happen in that meeting will happen by always moving on, right? For my team, there's another thing we usually say. We say Elmo. Elmo is enough. Let's move on. So if we're talking on something that is dragging over and over and over, it's not compulsory, it's me. Somebody within the team can just say Elmo. And when we say Elmo, we all smile and say, okay, you know what? Let's jump on another conversation. It really happens most times in retrospective, because in retrospective, you just see people talking and talking because it's a relaxed ceremony. So you see people talking and talking and talking and talking. So with that, you just say Elmo, we move on. Even in sprint planning, you can use Elmo in any of the ceremonies. You can just, and it's not compulsory you use Elmo, please don't get me wrong. Find anything that works in your team. It can be time up, it can be, but don't say it in a rude way. Remember, you're working with people, so you have to be very endearing in everything you say. So, purpose driven. Every meeting should have like an agenda. It must be something you want to get a result for. So, every meeting must be purposeful. It must be something to add value. Don't just do a meeting for meeting's sake. Don't do a ceremony for ceremony's sake, please. Another thing is you must have the team's acceptance in the sense that The team, for example, they know their timings for most of the ceremonies. They've agreed on it. It's the team's doing. You don't do anything in isolation. As a scrum master, as anybody within the team, you don't do things in isolation. That's why we call it teamwork. You have to work with your team. The team has to agree on these things. There's no author and finisher of anyone's fate. I remember last week I stated it very clearly. When it comes to the team in Scrum, there is no senior, junior, higher, lower. No. Everybody is equal within the team. Even if I'm a team lead, the only thing is that your responsibility is just a bit different. That's all. But we are working together as a team. There's no Lord, there's no this. You can't be rude. You have to respect one another. You have to work hand in hand. So everybody must have a say and it must have an acceptance. So for everything, you must prepare for it. Now, this one is going straight to the Scrum Master. This is me hitting the Scrum Masters. Every meeting, you must prepare for it. Now, let me tell you why. There's always what we call over familiarity when you do something. So you can imagine me I've been doing stand-ups every day now for couple of years, and I'm doing stand-up, stand-up, stand-up. Before you know it, it should just be like a song, like stand-up. Yeah. Always prepare for every meeting. Have that purpose in mind. Make sure you're ready with the time boxing. Make sure that your team are aware that that meeting is holding. Make sure that you involve everyone in the team. You can just jot down 1 or 2 points. Say, for example, there's an information you need to pass to the team. Note it down. Not that the meeting will finish. You not say, I forgot to say it, because you probably did not note it down. Also, always be prepared. Don't let over familiarity set in. The moment over familiarity set in, the meeting starts becoming bored, your team starts rebelling. Before you know it, you've lost your team. And there's one major thing in Scrum: you have to have your team's acceptance. You have to have your team's buying. The moment their agility starts dropping, their mindset is fading off, you are losing your team. You're not going to be able to achieve anything. So don't let over familiarity set in. Always make sure you're prepared. Not like you get to the team, you just be gisting about, just forget yourself. Just the first 30 seconds, you can use it for all the yada yada you want to do. Then wear back your armor. Hi everyone, just you must be on point at every time. Then every meeting must be valuable. You are having that meeting because you want to have an increment at the end of the sprint, right? So that increment you must have is something of value. You remember the skateboard, you remember the bike, until we got to a car. Sprint on sprint, something of value must happen in every ceremony you have. So moving on, we're now going to speak about the 5 ceremonies. But before we speak about the 5 ceremonies, I'm tempted to mention some of our artifacts, or let's finish the ceremonies, then we'll mention the artifacts. The reason I'm just saying it is just for your understanding, but let's keep going. I will mention the artifacts when the time is right. So sprint planning. So sprint planning is the first event of sprint. So sprint planning is the beginning of the sprint process. And in sprint planning, I told you earlier, the developers are there, the SMs are there, the POs are there to participate in the sprint planning. You can invite anyone if the team agrees to it. If they agree that it's appropriate, you can invite anyone. But most times, it's just all of you that will be doing it: the dev, the SM, and the PO. The PO has the vision for the team. So the PO is very, very important there. The PO will tell the team, okay, these are the things that we need to do and all that. The SM, the dev picks it up. As you go, you understand what to do in this sprint plan, especially when we do the demo for you, when we pick another day to do the demo for you as a team. But within this week, we're going to do the demo, so you see how and what actually happens in those planning. So in sprint planning is the first event of the sprint, and it's an event in the Scrum framework where the team determines the product backlog item. Now, this is where I was tempted to start telling you about the artifacts in Scrum. So there are lots of artifacts in Scrum, and there are 3 major artifacts in Scrum. So we have the product backlog, which is what I just mentioned. We have the sprint backlog, and we have the increment. So I'm going to explain this to you in a layman understanding so you will get it. So I mentioned product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. If you need to note this down, please note it down. Now, the product backlog is like a list of all the features that we want to do, everything we want to do. It can be features, it can be an enhancement, it can be anything, all the things we think we want to do on a particular project is kept in the product backlog. So we refer to them as product backlog items, PBI. So anytime you hear me say PBI, I'm saying product backlog items. The product backlog item, they sit on the product backlog. So the product backlog is all the things we want to do, like a list of all the features, maybe an enhancement, maybe requirements that is needed to build a product. So you can get all those requirements. BAs will be able to relate to what I'm saying now when they get to understand it better because they've not done it. So let me not be jumping. But BAs are going to be getting all these input requirements from maybe customers, maybe their competitors, maybe even general opinion, maybe the market, what is obtainable. They are going to get all these requirements, right? So all the requirements, all the things we think, all the things we think we are going to do in a project is what is seated in the product backlog. Product backlog. I'm going to ask somebody this at the end of the day, what product backlog is. So product backlog is in simple language so that it will stick all the things we think we want to do. Now, the second major artifact is the sprint backlog. So, we've set out all the things we think we want to do. So all the things we think we want to do, let's say let me put a small number, let's say there are 20 things that we want to do. Now, we want to now go into a sprint. So when we want to go into a sprint, we come to do sprint planning in it, which is this planning that we're looking at now. We want to do sprint planning. So in the sprint planning, we now sit down according to priority that we're going to get from the PO. We'll now pick the things that we think are relevant for us to work on in the sprint. Listen to the word sprint backlog. So when we pick the things, from that 20 things, we might pick only 4 things that we think we want to work on in this iteration, in this sprint. The moment we select those things, the PO approves, we agree as a team that we can work on this. We have checked that all the stories meet invest criteria. We have checked all we need to do. We have met probably definition of ready, we've stated it out, definition of done. We have thought it's good to go. Then we take it into sprint. The moment those 4 things from the 20 things have been agreed upon by the team that we are ready to go, then it changes automatically to sprint backlog. So you see that we brought the sprint backlog from the product backlog. So the sprint backlog is like the set of PBIs that we have to develop, the one we've agreed. Is the development team that will be doing this, right? I as an SM, I will not be doing this. The PO will just be telling us, okay, this is priority, but the developers, which is the development team, they will be the ones to agree on this. Sorry, please let's try to mute ourselves. Thank you. They will be the ones to agree on this. I hope you are getting this, my story. I'm trying to break it down in the simplest way I can and not to bore you. Now, the third leg of this is the increment. So an increment is like all those PBIs that we've done, right? We've now made it into a sprint backlog. So that 4 things that we have picked as a sprint backlog, the moment we agree that we want to work on it, and then we finish working on it, at the end of that sprint, it becomes something of value. It becomes an increment. So an increment is all those product backlog items that change to a sprint backlog that we now completed during the sprint, and even addition of the ones we've completed in the previous sprint becomes an increment. An increment is addition. Using the picture I gave you, if the sprint 1 we did the skateboard, and the sprint 2 we did the I don't know why scooter keeps going out of my head. And in sprint 2, we did the scooter. Sprint 3, we did a bicycle, right? So let's say we're in sprint 3 now, and we went to take 4 items from the product backlog, and it becomes an increment. Now that increment will now become a bicycle because it's now more useful because we've added all the things we've done from sprint 1, 2, and 3. So that increment, that addition, that increase is what is called an increment. So let me quickly go back and recap. PBI, that's product backlog alone now. All the things we think we can do in a project, the sprint backlog, the things we select from that product backlog that we want to start sprint with, and is approved, the team has agreed, the PO approved too, we're ready to go, we're good to go, we understand, we have good experience to be able to do those 4 items. The moment we pick that and agree, it becomes a sprint backlog. When we finish the sprint and we've added value, we've completed the work, we've done everything, it becomes an increment. That's your artifact in Scrum. We have other little artifacts here and here. I mentioned one earlier, DOR, DOD, burn down, different things. We call them artifacts and all. But the 3 major ones is what I've explained to you now. Product backlog, sprint backlog, product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. So those are the 3 major artifacts that we are working on. I took my time to explain this because we cannot explain Scrum without explaining the artifacts. So that's why I've explained that. Apologies, I have customers here trying to disturb me. Okay, so sprint planning. I've explained what sprint planning is. So you see, sprint planning is we now come, we sit down, look at those product backlog items. That process of converting that product backlog item to a sprint backlog is sprint planning. I hope you are visualizing where sprint planning lies between this. So that's sprint planning. So planning is an event in Scrum Framework where the team determines the product backlog items that they will work on that sprint and discuss their initial plan for completing those product backlog items. So the plan that you want to use to complete those 4 things, we will discuss it there. Are we okay with this? Do you have clarity in this? Developers will ask questions, BAs will respond, the QAs too will ask so that they are sure they can test those things when it's being developed. There's a conversation and collaboration going on inside all these things I've explained. You might not get a clear picture now, but by the time we show you the demo, you have a better understanding of what I'm driving at. So that is sprint planning. Now we go to the importance of sprint planning. I hope somebody is understanding what I'm saying. So we go to the importance of sprint planning. Some of the importance of sprint planning is, you know that quote when we say, he who fails to plan, you plan to fail. So it reduces the risks of failure. That's why we do sprint planning. So we have that discussion, we do sprint planning and all that. Now, if understanding and define the scope of delivery and how to accomplish it. So in sprint planning, please don't think sprint planning is just to go, talk and go. No, you need to know the scope of work you're doing. You need to have a mental picture of what you're doing. You need to be there. Some of us are in meetings and we are not present. That's why some people will now ask some questions that, oh, I know sometimes we have selective hearing in general, but please, when you're in these meetings, be there. You have to be there so that you can understand, the scope of what you're doing. You have clarity. If you have questions, there and there, you're asking and answering your questions and all that. Now, this thing can also happen in refinement, but I will just leave sprint planning as it is. If you remember, I told you that refinement is not like it's a do or die ceremony, but it's a very important ceremony. Some of these things can happen there to reduce the time that we're going to spend in sprint planning, debudaling and talking. But let's just set that aside. So another importance of sprint planning is just that collaboration within the team. But I will just go straight to the daily stand-up. I hope sprint planning is very clear. I'm trying to now work out with time because I'm giving you the main hints of the things that can give you a background knowledge of what these things are about. So we're going to go to daily stand-up. Now, daily stand-up is like a very short meeting. I will put daily stand-up as like the ceremony where the team members, you come together and synchronize all the efforts and everything you've been doing. You come together and have that gist. Daily stand-up, the right people are doing the right things, they are discussing at the right time. Is there something that we need to do, or something? You come to daily stand up, you quickly discuss it briefly. So it's a brief meeting designed to let the team plan our work for the day. So every day, just because of accountability's sake, you come together for 15 minutes to say what you want to do. There's these three focus questions that we usually say in daily stand-up: what you did yesterday, what you did today, and if there are any impediments. These are the focus questions. I don't know if it's on me to mention it, but you don't have to be a robot. You don't have to always say, what did you do? Okay, imagine me as a Scrum Master. I come to you and say, what did you do yesterday? It doesn't almost sound as if I'm touchlighting you. Like, what did you do today? No. Always be subtle when you're speaking about these things. I'll probably give us a better explanation of probably how to ask these questions. It's a quick exchange of vital information. And if you remember when I said earlier, like when you're talking in daily stand-up and it's exceeding 15 minutes, just put everything in the parking lot. Parking lot is like an extra meeting. Some people create it separately. Like for my team, I always create it separately. So we'll jump out of the daily stand-up, go and continue your gist in the parking lot. But however, some people, you don't need to create a separate meeting for them. You can just continue in that same meeting. But as a Scrum Master, onus is on you to mention that, excuse me, the daily stand-up is over. Say, for example, you finish the 15 minutes. Say, 1 minute, please, 1 minute. You have to be very nice and subtle. 1 minute, please, guys. So the daily stand-up is officially over. I'm happy for anyone to drop off the call. However, if you want to continue the discussion, please go ahead. So in their mind, they won't come tomorrow and say, you kept us in the stand-up for 45 minutes. No, you've cleared the head that you've done your 15-minute stand-up, you're done, and they are the ones just discussing. I'm happy for them to keep discussing as long as it's something that is very valuable to the team. So, but just make sure that you are time boxing the meeting. And please, in this time boxing, don't be too rigid. Don't be too, people can perceive rigidity when you are saying, by force, bam, 15 minutes. Sometimes 15 minutes can be 16, it can be 14, but just trying to work within your 15 minutes. Don't make it sound too difficult for your team. Don't let your team ever perceive rigidity in what you're doing. And in as much as I'm speaking to Scrum Masters now about, this time boxing, I'm also speaking to QAs, BAs, everybody, that when you're also talking in a meeting like a daily stand-up, you know that, let's say, for example, we are 10 in the team. We are 10 in the team, and obviously 1 minute to start and everything. Let's say 1 minute to also wrap up the call. So we have 13 minutes. So honestly, is on you to even know that you have 1 minute and maybe 20 seconds to do everything that relates to only you. But some people, they'll bring their mat and start discussing as if before 10 minutes is already gone and we're on one person. And that's selfishness. You're coming to daily stand-up. Like I said, I thought I was going to tell you some approaches. You can say, how did, your previous work yesterday, how did it help you achieve your sprint goal? That's me asking you what you did yesterday. Oh, yesterday, maybe sometimes for me, I note some of the things they say. So somebody says, I'm going to have a call with so customer to get a data on something. I've noted it down. So today, if you come on, when I want to start my conversation with you for you to speak to the team, I won't just say, how was yesterday, or what did you do yesterday? No, I'll tell you, yesterday you told us about getting data from so person. How was it? Were you able to get it? Then the person just jumped into that conversation. Oh, yes, we had a call yesterday. We're able to discuss about this. We're able to discuss. You have to make your stand-up lively. It's 15 minutes. That's why I say you have to be purposeful. You have to make it lively. You can't just come with the same statement every day, the same, it gets boring after a while. Even you that are doing it, even you will be feeling the boredom. So make all these things lively as you go on. So try different means, just keep everybody interested. So it's just see this statement, please. I'm hovering around this statement. Quick exchange of vital information. If you need to explain something in detail, please find a separate time and do an ad hoc meeting to have that conversation. Don't be selfish as a QA to spend 10 years explaining what happened yesterday or what happened. No, it's not really right. Another thing about stand-up there is they are good to identify obstacles. So when you have obstacles, maybe obstacles, impediments, I won't use it interchangeably, but some companies, they have the same meaning. In my own company, they don't have the same meaning. Obstacle is like, almost there's no way forward. Impediment is there's just a stop on the way. Okay, I need to just do this, probably get a data from this and move on. But obstacle is that you have blocked the road completely. How do we move on? So it might take maybe a domain level or a group scrum master or something to help out in, resolve. Not let me not use the word scrum master, like the domain, maybe PO or domain anything, or your customers to give inputs to help remove that obstacle. But if it's just impediment, sharp, sharp, a day or two, is resolved. So, but it depends. Every company might, some companies use it interchangeably. I just like to mention this thing so that we know that there's nothing cast on concrete. There's nothing, everything is flexible when it comes to Scrum, but we are just having to follow an agile mindset. Okay, moving on. So, another thing I tell people, you need to breed this in your team. Onus is on me to explain this to you. Like, so because you know that in daily stand-ups, we're going to ask you if you have, is there something, blocking your progress towards the sprint goal? Is there any impediment blocking you? So because of that, as a QA, this is to QAs, this is to developers, this is to BAs, this is to something, you have an impediment. So we started today, let's say we're in AM, so the time is 9 something AM. We had our daily stand-up at 9:10 to 9:25, for example. So this is 9:53. An impediment came up, and then I wait till tomorrow morning's meeting to tell you guys that I have an impediment. Is that fair on the team? Just think about it. It's not fair on the team. When you have such impediments, when something like that happens, immediately please throw it up. Thank God we're living the virtual world now. All you need is a chat away. Just chat the person, chat the right people. Either you escalate your Scrum Master immediately, or if you already have a rapport with probably the customer or the team member that can help you resolve it, or IT that helps chat immediately. Send a mail, do the needful. Oh, sorry, I have this obstacle. You don't always have to wait till stand up to speak about your obstacle. Always speak about your obstacle. Immediately you have them, okay, just try and find a way to resolve it. Send mails, copy the right people. You can copy your Scrum Master, your PO, just for them to be aware of this obstacle. It's a way of informing them too. Or you can chat the PO. Any ideas how to do this? You can chat the Scrum Master when the thing is relating to Agile, that the Scrum Master will have a full understanding of it. Even if it's not relating to Agile, you can always let your Scrum Master know. The Scrum Master will direct or, involve the right people to make it clear, just to clear that road for you, remove the obstacle, remove that impediment for you so you can walk smoothly. I thought I should mention that. Please always drop impediments immediately. That's how to move your team forward. So moving up, the attendees of the Scrum team, I've mentioned them, the PO, just the Scrum team, yeah, the PO, the developers, and the SM. And I told you all the people that encompass in the developers. I hope you're noting some of your questions. Then I'll quickly go through this picture. Daily stand-up, I told you 15 minutes every working day. It's always good to have it in the same place. So when I mean the same place and same time, please don't make your daily stand-up. I told you my daily stand-up, for example, that's not my timing. I'm just giving an example. 9:10 to 9:25. So today, Monday, you choose 9:10 to 9:25. Tomorrow, you tell them, you know what, daily stand-up is 10:15 tomorrow. Next tomorrow, say daily stand up. Before you know, people will start missing the meeting because it is not repetitive. It is not, I don't know how to put it. People will forget the timings. People will have catching calls because people have what they're doing too. People will schedule calls. People will invite your team members to calls. You've lost it. So always use the same timing. But please don't get me wrong. If I use 9:10, 9:10, 9:10, 9:10 for like 2 months, 3 months, and the team says, oh, 9:10 is not convenient, can we all make it 9 o'clock? So you have an agreement, probably your read through or something. Okay, you know what? Let's change the timing to 9 o'clock. Then we change it to 9 o'clock. Everybody agrees to it. Now, onus is on me to also mention that sometimes you have team members that are out of the country. I'll give you an example. I have team members, for example, in India. There are some people in India alone. Some people can be 8 hours different. Some people can be 5 hours different. Some people. So the person that is 8 hours different. Say, for example, you put stand up at 10 a.m. Let's say the person is 8 hours ahead, that means that person is in 6 p.m. That person might actually have closed from work. But at the same time, sometimes they too are very flexible to know that, okay, you know what, these people are also just starting their morning and the company's main whatever is in the UK. So they are quite flexible. But you shouldn't put the stand up at something that will be 10 p.m. for them. is wrong. Agree on a suitable time within the team. Once you agree on that time, that's fine. The link you use for the stuff is already on everybody's calendar. So same place, same time. If it's your physically meeting, you can use a particular room number, say room number 210, room number this. Everybody knows that that's the place. So they don't even need to check the calendar sometimes. Once it's 9:10 p.m. or what 9:10 a.m. rather, they just go in straight to room 107 because they know that's where we are having the stand up in the first place. It just helps people remember to join those calls. But when you do it scatteredly, it becomes a problem. Oh, I'm taking too much time. The next thing is facilitated by Scrum Master. That's given. I've mentioned that as I'm talking. I also told you about the focus questions, what you did yesterday, what you did today, and the impediments. That's the direction. But always find a way to find suitable words for all this. You don't always just, you can imagine 10 people. You now start, okay, Adiola, what did you do yesterday? Okay, person goes, oh, what did you do today? Okay, do you have any impediment? Tokwe comes. What did you do today? Emeka comes. What did you do today? Jeff comes. What did you do today? Brian comes. You will, even you people will feel that you are in kindergarten. After the first one, second one, by the third one, everybody's already bored. So always tweak your questions, note some of the things they say so that you can use that note to ask them questions. Just speak here and here and always have understanding of the team. So that's daily stand up. Okay, importance of daily stand up. I'll run through this very quickly. It helps inspect the team's progress. So everybody's saying their progress. So you can imagine everybody telling you this, that, that. It keeps in mind that, oh, I already told the team that I'm going to be getting the data from this, and I'm going to be having a call from this on this. It keeps you in check, So it helps to inspect the team's progress. It improves transparency. So I actually know what this person is doing. I know what that person is doing. It improves collaboration. So everybody's talking within the team. We're getting familiar with ourselves. It's not, there are some teams that you see them, it's only chat, they chat. No, you have to be able to talk on calls and all that. Collaboration, both in chatting and in talking, everything. Then they share progress, report impediments, and make commitments there and there. It gives peer-to-peer accountability. There's that shyness when, okay, you can imagine me asking that person that I gave example of, for example, that, oh, you said you're going to get the data from this yesterday, and you also said you're going to have a call with this person. The person now says, oh, I wasn't able to have the call, so the person was on holiday, but we've rescheduled, he responded to me, and we've rescheduled the call for today, so we're going to be having it today, and yes, I'm going to be getting data today. Now, we now come for a third day stand-up, and I now ask the person, oh, yeah, so that's the result. Have you gotten the data now? And the person says, no, reschedule the meeting. That person will even become shy at some point that I've been saying the same thing every day. And if you ask the question in those ways, it puts them in check that this lady will ask me this thing in front of the whole team. Or you know what? It keeps people in check, keeps them going. One way or the other, you have to find a way to motivate your team. Okay, moving forward, self-organization, everybody's organized. You already know, okay, these are the things I said I was going to do today. It keeps you in focus to make sure you do those things. So let's go to the next ceremony, sprint review. So sprint review is a meeting organized at the end of the sprint. Now, let me quickly do a throwback. So sprint planning, remember I told you is the first ceremony of the sprint. So once you start a sprint, the first thing you do is sprint planning. So it's done first thing day one of the start of a sprint. Whereas sprint review is the last, I won't say it's the last meeting, it's second to the last meeting, but it is done on the last day of sprint. So it's a meeting organized at the end of the sprint to collect constructive comments and feedback from stakeholders about what the team has accomplished. So sprint review, like POSM development team, and you remember I told you appropriate stakeholders, that's subject matter experts and co, they will be attending this ceremony. And all the PBIs that were completed, which is those sprint backlog that I told you has become an increment, will be what will be presented in this sprint review. Remember, I also told you that sprint review can be referred to as demo. It depends on the organization, but the general word is sprint review. So some organizations call it demo, some organizations call it showcase. I'm sure there are more names, but depending, like I always say, when you get to organization, just look for what is obtainable. So if the whole world and the standard in the organization is calling it showcase, you want to insist that I know it. The name is sprint review. Why people don't do that? Please always go with what your organization is doing, as long as the thing is not wrong. And if you feel the thing is wrong or something, then you can find a more constructive way of changing things. Don't just jump there and go and do Lord of the Rings. You just look for enmity that you don't even need. at this your job. So just try. I'm trying to mention all these things so it will put us in perspective of when we start working in our organization, and that's what we are going to. Importance of sprint review. So some of the input, sorry, I wanted to mention the second point on the sprint review. So the review provides a place where the Scrum team presents their work and they get completed for the project. So I also mentioned that all the things that have been completed will be presented. The team doesn't show the things that are still in progress. But sometimes, if something is in progress and has gotten to a milestone that you think you want to showcase, you can showcase it. But usually it's completed work that you show in the sprint planning, in the sprint review rather. And the goal is to obtain feedback. Remember, I put it there, the goal is to obtain feedback from those stakeholders or subject matter experts on what has been done. So you need to get feedback from them. It's very, very important. And now when we get that feedback, I know this is not, I'm trying to save time. That's why I'm not making it too interactive. I'd love to ask somebody now that, that feedback, what happens to that feedback? And I'm going to refer you to empiricism, which is adaptation. So one of the things you do when you get this feedback is go back and adapt. You make the changes. You go back and fix those things. You make the appropriate adjustments. That's why we do sprint review. So if you've done something, I give an example of the customer that she actually asked for a red car, but when she saw red car, she ran away. I don't like this shade of red. Just make it pink, or make it lighter red, or make it something. Or make it tomato this, something like that. You just go back and adapt. This is just a very mild example, just to bring it home. So importance of sprint review. It provides a routine status update. It helps ensure the right products that fit the customer needs are created. So the customer's needs is what our focus is. It also helps to inspect the outcome of the sprint. So inspection is also done in sprint review. So those people, that's the stakeholders and co, they are inspecting what you have done, and then you will go back and adapt to what that has been inspected. You see why I needed to speak about empiricism. That's why I didn't want to jump into Scrum Ceremonies, so that you guys will have a feel of everything that we are saying. You can go back and listen to the video so that it will help you have a clearer understanding. You can also check YouTube. You can also check maybe Google Scholar and get more information on these things. It puts you, and best bet, just read the Scrum guide. It helps you a bit understand this better. So this is the sprint review. So if you see the sprint review, we are showcasing what you have done, and these are the bad guys giving you responses to what you have done and all that. I just have to explain what the picture is about. So let's quickly jump to retrospective. Okay, so remember we've spoken about the first thing that starts, which is the sprint planning, is the first thing that we use to start the sprint. Then during the course of the sprint, we do the daily stand-up. Please get this mental picture. Sorry if I'm repeating, but please get this mental picture. The sprint planning, first thing you do. Then after the sprint planning, every day of sprint, you do daily stand-up. And at the end of the sprint, you do the sprint review, which is the one that we invite the stakeholders. Then after that sprint review, people usually will just probably, for example, say you do your sprint review in the morning, you do it maybe between the hours of 9 and 12 or 9 and 10, whatever it is, you do your sprint review. You've done with your sprint review. You guys can go on break, do your normal daily, and come back and do a retrospective at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. or 1:30 to 3 p.m. something. So retrospective is done after the review. Somebody has inspected us, and then we'll come to this retrospective to discuss all the things that went well during the course of the sprint, all the things that really did not go well during the course of the sprint. Is there anything we need to change? Is there anything we need to do to make a difference? Is there anything we need to do to make a difference? So people will bring in suggestions, different things about the retrospective. So that's what retrospective is about. So I will show you guys okay, let's quickly talk about retrospective in general. So retrospective is anytime maybe the team comes together to reflect on the past, that what we have finished with. We just finished the sprint. So we are coming to reflect on the past. That's what retrospective is about. So retrospective is a meeting held at the end of each sprint where the team reflects on the past sprint and identifies ways to improve their processes and practices. So they identify ways to improve their processes and practices. So that's what retrospective is about. So it's a very chill meeting. And now it's not every time you do retrospective in the very ad hoc way of just, normal things that you do. It's not every time you do retrospective that way. You can do retrospective even with an outing. You can do fun games. So I can give you some of the examples of some of the retrospective we've done in maybe 2023, for example. Only 2023. I'm talking of other times. I think that we've gone rowing, don't row your boat. When you're rowing a boat, you might be three, four, five people in a boat, right? So if you are three, four, five people in a boat, somebody will be rowing one side, another person is rowing one side. What does that tell you? That's teamwork. That's a fun game for all of us. So we went actually to do rowing. It was very fun. Sometimes we can just go to an arcade game to play tennis. Maybe we'll play roller pin and all those things. Or we do any game at all. Then sometimes it can just be someone will go and eat fish or maybe just order some menu, do something here and here, and get things right. So that's retrospective. Then sometimes, most times, you just hold it, either virtually or physically. For my team, we prefer physically. Some of my other teams we do it virtually, just to have that experience of a chill meeting. So it's done at the end. It's just to inspect ourselves. It's to adapt to changes. What didn't really go well, what went well, and all that. So what are the things we should keep doing? There are different perspective. If you go to Google, you see different ways of doing 1,000,001 ways of doing retrospective. Anything that works for your team, anything that makes you guys happy, just do it. So the ceremony helps to find and figure out ways to improve the team and ways to make things better. So usually we start with an icebreaker. I'll tell you guys what an icebreaker is, and I'll speed up from here on because time is already against us. So, and I told you it's done within 1.5 hours to 2 hours every sprint. So an icebreaker, for example. Important of retrospective is, the Scrum team inspect their activities, it develops a plan for the next sprint. So say something did not work well for us this sprint. Okay, how do we do better and all that? When we're doing our demo, we'll also tell you some of the ways we take action plans and assign people to handle those action plans amongst other things. The truth is, if we take our time to really, really, if I take my time to explain everything, we'll not leave here today. There are lots of things that encompass all these ceremonies, but as you go, you will learn it. So let's relax. I'm trying to be considerate of time, especially for those that are not in the UK. So, in an opportunity to evaluate what is working efficiently for the team, what went well, and what could be worked upon, is reason that we do retrospective increases the quality and effectiveness of work. So you've done something. You've come back to discuss what went well, what didn't go well, and all that. You've agreed on action plans. Okay, you know what? We did not communicate very well in this team due to this reason or this reason. We did not seek some of our customers to get some information of them. You know what? Next sprint, let's try and do this better. Guys, if anything comes up, let's communicate with each other. Let's collaborate. Let's work as a team. Let's improve on this. Let's improve on that. The next sprint, if you guys actually improve on those things, don't you think you'll do better as a team? That is what retrospective is about. Just trying to do better. But like I explained earlier, it's a very chill ceremony because here you can laugh, you can say all those yada yada yada, all those funny things. But at the same time, don't lose focus of the reason you're in that retrospective. And guess what? The reason you're in that retrospective is to be better as a team. So you can start with all the icebreaker and all the play and everything you want to do, but at least when the time like for example, we can use 30 minutes to do all our yada yada yada, and then the last 1 hour to explain exactly why we are doing the retrospective. Okay, what really went well, what's not going well. Oh, some of these applications, maybe MATLAB or this one is not working, or SVN is not doing this one, or GitLab is not doing this one. We'll explain everything. You know what? Okay, how can we be better? How can we improve on this? Do we need licenses on this? Anything to improve your team. You discuss all those. Then it allows team to freely share their opinion. Like I said, it's a chill place, it's a relaxed place. It's not rigid. Everybody's equal in the team. You can express yourself. So some of the icebreakers, for example, is you can imagine an icebreaker exercise. So there was something I told Bolu earlier that when I jumped on team 1 to 4, I saw that you guys were chill. You're just expressing yourself. People were describing themselves as an animal, as a this. I was like, okay, these guys, they know what they're doing. I was very, very impressed by your collaboration earlier today. So it could be anything. You can say, okay, if I had superpowers, or if you're a superhero in relation to the time that you spent in Blue Sky, what will be who will you be? What superhero will you be? And why are you being that superhero? So it's just a retrospective exercise. This is just, by the way, this is like the mildest of all. So this is not icebreaker. If we do icebreaker in my team, we can almost tear the building down. People always know when we are doing icebreakers because we don't have chill in my team. Everybody is always fun and all that. That first 30 minutes, oh my god, it's always very crazy. So it could be, if you have $1 million, what will you do? How will you spend it? These are not very mild ones I just always put here. Then for retro, sometimes I use the wheel. I just spin a wheel. If you go on Google, you can get any picker wheel. You put people's names, so the names will reflect here. You spin the wheel. So if like this one now, if it falls on Kemi, you now ask Kemi the question or something, anything, just to make it fun. You can't keep doing the same thing every day and all that. Just different things for perspective. Sometimes you just spot the difference. Oh, we give you 45 seconds to spot 15 difference here. So you see the person trying to hustle. Oh, this leg is wearing socks. This one not anything. Just fun. Retro is supposed to be fun, so make it fun. And I always tell people, it's not the person that organized the party that should make it interesting. The people attending the party should make it interesting. So onus is not on the Scrum Master or something to make it interesting. Onus is on all of us to make it interesting. So let's be there. Like I said in every call, let's be present. Let's be present. Then you can do tongue twisters. You can do anything. So this is the typical, very simple way of a retrospective. What went well? What could have been improved upon? Action items, okay, or what should we continue doing? What should we stop? What should we start doing? Different things. Okay, what makes us happy? What makes us sad? You see some we say sad, mad, glad, or something. Anything. These are retrospective format. We have, like I said, a million. Just go retrospective format. Look for anyone you want to adapt within your team. You can make changes from time to time and all that. Moving on, like this is a very, very standard one also, is called hot air balloon. So in the hot air balloon, it captures everything I want, for example. So sunshine is any bright ideas anyone has within the team. um, Thunderstorm is if there are any obstacles, like the examples I gave, maybe an application really showed us shaky and it's not really our fault, maybe it's a licensing issue, you can put it in Thunderstorm. If you have questions for the team, you can put it. If you have, maybe this is the rising hair. So rising hair, what is pushing us along as a team? Oh, in this team, we've been collaborating very well. So we should keep improving on our collaboration, sandbag. What's pulling us back? What is pulling us back is probably we need one more developer, or we need anything that's pulling us back. Recognition. We can't have done a fantastic sprint without recognizing somebody. So you can imagine, I don't know who is Adiola on Discord, but that name has suffered today. So you can imagine maybe Adiola helped me to remove a particular impediment. So I can mention it here. Adiola gave me a data to whatever. Adiola gave me a user guide which really helped me to know the. Just put recognition. You recognize everyone who has helped you within the course of that sprint. So that's what it gives me everything. That's why I usually use this one for my team, and this is what my team likes. I have another team that doesn't like this one and they want something else. It could be Rose's board. So I won't waste time on it. Google, check anyone that suits you as a team. This one is Rose, boards, and tons. So let's go. Some people, oh my god, I always say this anytime I do this, I say the day my team has never used this, and you guys do not guess why. Because they fought. Why will you put glad for Chelsea? What gives you the right to put glad? We used more than 15 minutes to laugh about just this page. We went back to our old one. We said we don't want. What gives you the right to recognize Manchester when Manchester is doing badly? What gives okay, you know what? Let's swap it. Let's put back Barcelona here. Let's put this one in story. No, nobody agreed to anything. It's really, really fun. Just look for anything that is fun within your team to make it happen. This is a very typical example of what I've mentioned earlier. So for my team, let's say our team is ABC Sprint Retrospective. So we have Abibola Mojibolu, all of us are here. So we come and put in all our tickets. the tickets will be way times 2 of these. I just put few tickets to show us an example. I recognize Moji for teaching us Azure board. I thanked Abby for being awesome. Maybe the person showed me something, anything. You just put it round and round. So any ticket that is orange here, we know it's Abibola that wrote this ticket. Any ticket that is this color, any ticket that is Bolu's color, we know it's Bolu that wrote those things. So we use this just to differentiate ourselves. Anything that is here, it's me that is writing it, handling impediments. It's me that is handling this one, I wrote this one or something. Just fun. Then when we finished, we agreed on action item, training day on Agile. So we agreed to train ourselves on Agile. So these are part of the action items we took. Training day on Agile. So let me quickly go so I don't waste too much time on retro. So some of the tools that we use for retro, we use this board I showed you now is a Lucid board. But some of the other tools, we use Miro, Mural, we use Lucid Spark, we use Azure DevOps in itself. We have tools there to use. Some people use Mentimeter. There are a lot of tools you can use for retro board. But even some people now use Zoom because it has a whiteboard. Anywhere that has a whiteboard, anything, or even the ones that are incorporated into the project management tool, like this Azure DevOps now, there's a tool in it that is retrospective. We'll show you guys when we're showing you the demo for it. It has a retro board. So anything that works for your team. Then let's quickly go to refinement. I'll be very fast as regards refinement. So refinement is like the full name of refinement is product backlog refinement. So it's a backlog refinement. It's a process to add, maybe like you want to add details to something, you want to add a description, you want to size a story, you want to anything on that product backlog item. Remember the artifacts, product backlog item, sprint backlog, and the increment. So we're going to the first one, which is product backlog item. And that product backlog item is the PO's baby. The BAs load it, but it's a PO's baby. That managing that backlog is actually a PO's job. So the product backlog item now, we'll sit down and refine the stories that we want to take into the sprint backlog. So instead of doing it in the sprint planning, during the refinement, we would have taken our time to refine the stories. I told you the English word of these things means everything. We are refining the story. In refinement, the team looks at that product backlog item and then they decide on how to decompose it, how to break it down so that it can be suitable for the sprint. So if we say we want to do maybe landing page, okay, let's break it down to the header, the footer, the this one, the that one, we'll break it down. So in that refinement, we break down stories to be sizable, to meet invest criteria. Invest criteria will be a second assignment for you guys to look at what invest criteria is. Now, these assignments are not things you're going to submit, but they are things you should know. Please go and check it out. I told you to read the Scrum Guide, and I told you now to look at what invest criteria is about. So go and check it out. Please note it down. In refinement, the team looks at the product backlog and decide whether further decomposition is required. If it's not required, it can be included in the next sprint straight away. So we'll pick the ones, and in this, we have to pick the things of priority. It's not like they're not going to prioritize. They have to be things of priority. So in refinement, this process continues until the team finds a good collection of user stories. So user stories, no, I'm not going to scatter your head. You get to understand it. So the stories in the product backlog item, they are going to be included into the sprint backlog. So that's what we are refining. And when we say into the sprint backlog, it will still be seated on the approved column anyways. So when we do the sprint backlog, and when we do the sprint planning, we'll now move them into sprint backlog items. Then the PO part, okay, I've mentioned that the PO prioritizes the stories and then the team estimates. Now, the estimation you do in refinement is just like, I won't call it a mental estimation, but something close to that. Okay, this story looks like a 3-story point. Okay, but by the sprint planning, we're going to be confirming that estimation. But if you have looked at the estimation in refinement and you see that this story is like a 13 or 20-story point, you know what? Let's break it. The best time to start breaking it is during this refinement, this decomposition. If you have had a mental picture of an estimation, you start decomposing those stories and breaking it down into smaller pieces, right? So when we're talking of user stories, we're just talking of breaking down those product backlog items that we want to do. We're breaking down into stories. So you're going to say a story to get those things done. We'll teach you a bit of user story. I don't want to digress. Okay. Severity is like importance, like ranking. So how important is this? If they tell us to do 1, 2, 3, 4, we said we're picking 4 things into the increment. The PO can tell you that, please mute yourself. The PO can tell you that, okay, muted. The PO can tell you that number 4 is the most important one. It can tell you that the next story that is important is number 2. The next story that is important is number 1. And so you put them in order of priority. So you put them in order of priority. Then in refinement, you also have the clear acceptance criteria, DOR, DOD. DOR is definition of done, definition of ready. And I like using this very good example for definition of done. I'm sure I've used it before prior now. So let me give an example. As a wife, if I cook, for example, and I finish cooking, I have turned off the gas, I can actually shout, honey, your food is ready. And if my husband comes to the dining, he say, where is the food? Because to him, for me, that's my own definition of ready, that the food is ready. When then the moment I turn off the gas, to me, the food is done, it's ready to be served. But that's not the same definition for my husband. His definition is when you take a plate, serve the food, put it on the dining, and now calling, that's the definition of done. Hey, it's ready to consume it. So we all have kind of different interpretations for it. But as a team, you come together and agree on an interpretation. So if the food is still in the pot, it's turned off, it's completely cooked. If what you agree as a team that's when it is, that story is done, then it's going to be it. You agreed as a team. But if you agree that it has to be served, placed on the dining table and everything, you agree as a team, then that story is done. So you have to come together as a team to get your definition of done and ready. When we're taking you through team chapter, we'll take you through all this. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. Importance of refinement to keep the backlog up to date, and the PBIs are prepared for the next sprint. So it just reduces the waste of time that you're going to be taking them. So you can imagine in sprint planning, you now saw that a story is too big. You now want to start breaking it down. You're going to be breaking it down with the sprint planning. It's going to take the whole day. But if you break it down during the refinement, then you can review it again during the sprint planning. So whatever works for you as a team, that's it. Then ensures PBI for next sprint are prepared and prioritized. That's another importance of refinement. I've mentioned that, so I'm not going to do it on that. Eliminate backlog chaoses. So on that backlog, we told this everything we want to do, right? So from that everything we want to do, from 20 things, you see, we just chose 4 things. So we're just eliminating any yada yada yada, any chaos or anything. We're removing that. It keeps the team updated on the status of the PBI. I mentioned invest criteria. So that's all for actually refinement. And all the things I've spoken about, starting from the planning all the way, we're going to show you a demo of it. Please don't miss the demo. This time around, it will be us acting out how most of these ceremonies go in a very simple way so that you have an understanding. And then by the time you start doing it, you know what you're supposed to do. So from sprint 1, you're going to start all these things already. You're even going to start them already by the end of sprint 0. But from sprint 1, you start your planning, everything gradually. So please grab as much as you can. So this is the invest criteria I was mentioning about. Every story must be independent. When we say independent, it must be a standalone from another user story for maybe next sprint or something. It must be standalone, it must be negotiable. That's, you can negotiate how to implement it. You can go, let's say you're in the sprint planning, the developer asks a question, okay, you know what, let's do it this way, okay, let's do it that way. You must be able to, it must be something of value to the customer, you must be able to estimate it. If you have a story that is as big as, maybe to 21 story points and all that, it's too big. You have to break it down. So it must be something that is estimable, it must be small enough for us to finish in that sprint. Don't go and bring a story that you know that this story, you can never finish it in this sprint. So you will not have an increment. So you try your best to finish. However, this is the only reason I'm actually explaining the invest criteria, because I expect us to go and read about it. For the small, that explanation of sometimes some stories will have to roll over. Your intention at the start of the sprint is to make sure you finish that story. But remember when I was explaining, I said sometimes you have impediments. Under 1 or 2 days, you can remove the impediment, but when it's an obstacle, it's a total roadblock. Sometimes it might be something that you can't move forward to. Let me give you a very, very common roadblock. So, for example, there's budget constraints. So there was budget for the thing before, then suddenly the organization thinks that, you know what, let's still put this project aside, or this particular thing on that project or something, let's put this aside, let's work on this aspect of the project. So because of budget constraints, so you have to, and you started that story already, and this thing happened during the course of it, you can always put that story aside. And instead of it rolling over, you just put it in the backlog when you end the sprint. So, but whatever it is, there are things that can make a story. It might be an impediment. Maybe a developer was working on something, and then the tester tested it, and then there's a bug. While trying to clear the bug, the sprint ended. They were not able to finish that cycle. It can roll over to the next sprint. But please, let's not have that intention that will always be rolling over things, rolling over things. No, it won't work that way. When you are doing agile, you're doing Scrum, you have to be intentional. You have to have an agile mindset. You have to also have a bit of that assignment mentality. Like when my lecturer gives me an assignment, you are to submit on the 30th of January. Come rain, come storm, I have to submit something, or else I'll get zero. So you have to have that mentality that you have to try to complete it. However, if you're not able to complete it, there should be a good justification why you cannot complete it. Because you cannot always go to the sprint review and tell your customers or stakeholders or something that we did not finish it because what? They're paying you every day. So it must be something very concrete that they can relate to as to why you did not finish it. So that's that testable. Everything must be able to be tested for completion and sign off. So we're almost done. This is now Scrum ceremony at a glance. So this is the whole Scrum ceremony. Remember where I told you that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items, this product backlog item. So the team selects a few things. So instead of this full stack, we selected just a few things. Then we start the sprint. So we put it, this becomes a sprint backlog. We do it for 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks, but in this aspect, 2 weeks. Then every 24 hours, we do daily Scrum. Then at the end, we do sprint review. We have a finished work. So we did finish work, we do sprint review, then we come and do retrospective. So this is Scrum at a glance. So these are inputs from all the executive team, stakeholders, that's gathering those requirements. The PO, which is the visionary of the team, is giving us this to get this product backlog item. So if you see what I mean when I say this is the PO one person, this is Scrum Master one person, this is team more than one person. It's not necessarily three, they're just showing us that they are more than one person. So this is a Scrum ceremony at a glance. I'm just jumping because really our time is up. So why is Scrum the best ceremony? I always like asking this question. So now it's time to raise our hands. We are already at the peak of the. Anybody that wants to answer this question, what's out of all these ceremonies I've mentioned, what's the best Scrum ceremony, and tell us why? Who is going? Raise your hand. Just tell us one person or max 2 people. Anybody wants to tell us the best Scrum ceremony? Okay. Okay. I'm not sure if somebody is raising their hands before Adeoluwa. I'm seeing double here. Sorry. Is anybody raising their hands? This F, somebody is before Adeolu. Do you want to speak?
Yes, Said.
Okay, please. Said, go ahead. Oh, yeah, you split your name today. Said, go ahead, please.
Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
For me, I think the best Scrum ceremony should be the retrospective because
Okay, why?
because after going through the project, there's room for reflection to see how good the product is. If for example, the stakeholders are not satisfied with the product, there's room for improvement of the product. So that's the reason why I think that should be the best Scrum ceremony.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Said. And I like the backing you gave it, the explanation. Thank you. Adeolu.
Yes, thank you. So my thought is, my thinking rather is sprint planning.
Okay.
Because I feel if the foundation is not right, then the building is obviously going to collapse.
I
So
love that.
yes, so I think you need to plan first, then execution later.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Adeolu. Please, nobody should raise their hands again. Oladile.
I believe the product backlog is where everything is, taken down. And I believe at that point, if you make a mistake, you tend to struggle by the time you are going to the rest, and then you start going through some problems or obstacles because your product's backlog has been faulty from the beginning.
Okay, I will take what you mean as product backlog as refinement, because product backlog is not a ceremony. Product backlog is an artifact. So, but I get your point, and thank you so much for that. And lastly, Abiodun.
Just to back up what Adeolu said is about product planning. And I just feel like sometimes I feel like this will actually save time if you plan well. So
Okay,
in terms
what
of
sprint
time
planning you mean?
management.
You mean
Sorry, what did
sprint
you say?
planning? You mean
Sprint
sprint
planning,
planning?
sorry, sprint planning, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you everyone. You can put your hands down now. Everybody has said very fantastic, and that's all beautiful answers. All of you got it right. But if I'm now just going to, I want to do this so that you get the feel, and the reason is because this is usually an maybe sometimes it's an interview question for a lot of people. Maybe I should look for. Let me see if she's on the call. Moji, you're on the call. Please tell us 1 minute, please. Tell us the best ceremony. So you hear from a mentor what she feels the best ceremony is. Moji, I'm happy for you to speak.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Good evening, everyone, once again. The best ceremony is all the ceremonies. And why I say that is because Scrum is a framework. Okay, so let's see it as a table. If we keep picking one ceremony above the other, it's like saying a table can stand on 3 legs or on 2 legs. So all the ceremonies are interwoven and they all work together. That's what makes the Scrum. That's what makes that framework to work, to be one of Agile's best practices. So you can't take one above the other because it's a like I said, it's a framework. They all work. They all constitute what you call Scrum. So one is not the best out of the other. They all have their values and they all add their values to the Scrum framework to make it what it is. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So that's actually the correct answer. But trust me, even all what you said is correct. So usually in interviews, when you get this, you can start with how she explained, saying all the 5 ceremonies, or just say all the ceremonies are excellent. They work hand in hand. And like she gave a very spot on example. Even if 3 legs can actually stand the table, really try it. 3 legs can stand the table. But at the slightest, it falls down and it must now be used. But 4 legs will always stand, right? So that's exactly what it is. But however, when you've explained that and said all the ceremonies work hand in hand, sometimes the interviewer will put a gun on your head. Then you pick what you have said. So you could choose sprint planning, you could choose any one of it, choose any one that you decide and put your back in. You must give a reason. And all of you give spot on reason. That's why I said you all have your reasons and you got it correctly. For me too, I always speak retro. Sometimes I always speak spring planning because in my head, okay, we need to retrospect, but at the same time, if we don't plan in the first place, how do we get it? Okay, you know what? If we don't refine, so it can be very confusing. So I just thought to give you guys a feel of an interview question, and that's how you answer. You always answer in a very spot on way, very calm, explain what you need to explain, and then we move on. Thank you so much. Please raise your hands if you have any question. That's it for tonight. So we'll quickly answer your questions and then we go on. But I hope you guys understand as much as you can. Thank you so much. Do you want to stop the recording, Bolu? Or should we take the questions with this? Your call, actually.
I don't know how you want, if you want it to be broken or if you just want the question to keep flowing into it. I don't know
Okay,
why.
that's fine. Let's take the questions and we'll time ourselves. This is 10:35. Let's see if we can finish everything by 45. We'll just work with the questions we have. We will continue the questions maybe when we're doing the ceremonies physically. So please, who is the person that his name starts with A? I can't see properly. I can only see Juliet.
Ayodele.
Ayodele, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. When you
Good
made
evening.
mention of the Scrum team, you said the PO, the Scrum Master, and the developers. Under the developers, you made mention of those that should be the developers. You said the QA and the developers, like software developers and UI, UX design and the likes. But as far as this training is concerned, I think the only roles that the developer is the only QA. There's no software developer in this training, and there's no UI UX developer here. There's no backend developer and front developer. So my question now is, how are you going about all those roles in the developer team?
Okay, thank you. Your question is well understood. So I'm just giving you examples of people that will probably be in your team. And yes, if you heard Deji when he was telling you about the developers, he explained that we have developers, but they are his team. So they are not actually interns, but they're already experienced people. So that's why they are his developers. So they are not here for internship. So we are going to have developers in that team. That's one. Then secondly, even our developers, most of them are full stack developers. They can handle front end, they can handle back end and all that. So yes, we have developers. But this is me just mentioning people that can be in your team. And I just mentioned some designers for you, maybe UX, UI designers and all that. But we have engineering, we have different, it could be any developer that will be, it depends on that project. Some people are experts in different things, so they are the ones that you know that will be in your team. This is us telling you in a very professional way. But yes, for the cost of the internship, it will just be the roles you are aware about plus developers. You can actually not have because we are here to develop a project, right? We are here to develop a product. You can't do it without developers. So definitely have developers in your team. So if you check the um messages that will be coming during the course of this week, you see the list of your developers. Or did you want to correct me if you've sent their developers to them already?
No, I haven't. But I'll be sending it out probably tonight. Of course, they will have started joining, but I'll just
Yeah.
send the list later tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. So you definitely have developers on the call. So thank you so much. Juliet.
Can you hear me okay? Hello? Can you
Yeah,
hear
we
me?
can hear you. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so my question is this. At the beginning of the class, you mentioned that Scrum ceremonies or Scrum as a framework is meant to help develop or deliver a product or a project faster. But
Mhm.
then the explanation you gave, like the pictures, when you said that a customer that wanted a car, so you give him a scooter
Product.
first and then a bicycle first. Yeah. So I was thinking in my mind then that how does that then tie into the cost effectiveness of the project?
Okay.
Because does it then have to be you're giving the client something of value at every sprint, at the end of every sprint? Does it have to be something related to the final product? Because I was just thinking in my head, if I'm going to use this sprint to make a car, no, a scooter, how do I then convert that scooter into a car eventually? Is that not like a wasted product, or was that just an explanation? So I just wanted to get a bit more
Okay.
understanding. Yeah.
It's
I don't know
just
if
a
you
bit
get
of, yeah, I get your point. I get your point. It's just a bit of explanation as regards value.
right.
What we are trying to say is for every sprint you do an increment, something of value must be added. Something useful must be added. That's the meaning of that definition. So I get where you're coming from. We're just trying to say that somebody that built a tire, we are going to build a car, but somebody that built it just an ordinary tire for you, it's not a means of transportation. Tire will not take you anywhere. But guess what? A scooter is going to take you somewhere. So we're just trying to say that it's something of value, something valuable to the team. And the one I'm talking about fast is, say, for example, and I'm talking about fast and waste together now. So, in a waterfall aspect of it, you want to do a site. So, the first thing you do is you sit down, you do a serious planning as to what you want to do from start to finish. Then you start. Then the moment you start, you have to follow through with that plan. And when you finish that plan, in between this, you're not going to be having conversations with stakeholders, because you only have conversation with stakeholders at the start and at the end of your development when it comes to waterfall. So you've had the conversation, you've discussed deeply with the customer has told you everything you want to do. Then you sit down, you plan. When you do the plan all the way to the end, then you now call back the customer, come and see, right? Now, so you can imagine if, for example, we've done a background on that website that the customer doesn't want. We have created the footer, put in some plugins here and here that the customer does not desire. The customer doesn't want that. The customer wanted it at the start, but they cannot visualize exactly what they want. You know, sometimes when people tell you they want something, they know what they want, but you might not be able to picture everything they want. This is you going back to just try and picture what the person wants and put. So the person now tells you that, all what you people did, I don't like it. Please change it. Or let me bring it home with a house. Somebody tells you they want to do a 4-bedroom house. And then you finish everything before you now call the person, come and see. The person sees it and say, I don't like this. This place should have curved a bit. And the person did not mention it from the start. Now you have to start breaking that building and then making adjustments, more costs here and here. And you finish the house totally. If you are busting a place, you end up busting the pipe, you end up busting, different, it becomes more cumbersome. Now imagine this other way that we're using Agile to build our house. So the customer tells you, you do the foundation, you now show the partitioning, you bring the customer in, yeah, come and see. We've done the foundation, no? We've put it here, put it here. Person say, no, that particular room, I want the edge to cover that back. You see, it's only foundation we've done. What will it take us to adapt to just curving that end? We won't be wasting any money as such. We'll just adapt immediately, make the changes the person wants there and there. Then we start building it up to linted. As we are building, the person says, you know what? Let's cut this 4th room. Let's make it 5, because I might be having a permanent guest in the house. I just wanted to have a small room somewhere. You can easily adapt to it immediately, because I have not put in pipes. I have not done anything. So nothing is going to be, I don't know if you get where I'm driving to. You're not going to waste money because you're adapting to that person's change immediately. The person is in that journey with you. The person is growing, that the person is building the house with you. The only difference is the person doesn't have the expertise to build the house, but the person is seeing what you're doing as you are going. The person is liking it. In fact, the person is already excited. The person loves what they are seeing already. So when it finishes, the person is liking it immediately. You don't have to break down the house all over again to start to adapt what they know, which is what would have happened in the case of waterfall most of the time. And then scope will now change amongst other things. But here and here, scope can be changing and be doing this, but you are doing it immediately. You're not wasting time. You can imagine that we've used 1 full year to build the whole house. Then the person says they don't want it again, then you start all over again. But in Agile, you are doing it, you are testing. Like, say, for example, you test what has been done. They say they want this to be clickable, you test it that it's clickable. Okay, say, for example, you want to sign in a password, you check, you test immediately that password, maybe they gave you an instruction that it is going to be alphanumeric. You test it, that is it alphanumeric. You now test with something crazy, like maybe I put only letters. If it allows me login, then there's something wrong with that site. Why will you allow me login when you've told me that I must use alphanumeric to log in? I used only alphabets and it logged in. You can detect the issue immediately. You can resolve it immediately. You are testing on the go. Sprint on sprint, you are testing to make sure it's workable. So you see, that means of transportation is what we are trying to do for that car. Let me rephrase the word. It wasn't the car that is the target, it's the means of transportation for that person. So we did a scooter. You see that the lady was not smiling when we did a scooter because it's just okay. She can move, but she needs a bit of, you have to be pushing your leg to move, but at least it's moving you. When you climb on the scooter, okay, the scooter is a bit seamless. If you use electric bike, it's way better. Now I can sit down and move. I don't need to be on the stand to move. If I do a power bike, in fact, I can go city to city. Boom, is going. Now I now have a car to sit down. The main target was a means of transportation, and the person has gotten that means of transportation. Thank you. I hope it's clear.
It is now. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. I don't know who the O is again. I've missed the O. I'll remember Adeolu, but who is the O? Please go next. OJ. The person's initial is OJ. Oladele. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I want to ask this when you were talking about the ceremonies, made mention of the duration. So I want to ask, the duration that you showed us on your slide, are they standard or are they something that can be adjusted by the Scrum Master? Like when you
It's
say
not
4 hours within a 2 week sprint, does it mean any sprint that is duration of 2 weeks has to be 4 hours of sprint planning?
okay. So thanks for the question, and I like that question. So it's not compulsory, but it's just a standard that I've given. However, so you can imagine, let me use myself as an example. I have small teams, I have big teams. So I have a team that were just 7, I have another team where 21. Do you think we spend the team of 21, our sprint plan, we end up using 2 hours plus, right? We don't use up to 4 hours. We don't need 4 hours, of which we're even using a 3 week sprint. We're supposed to be using 6 hours by the standard. But within 2.5 hours, 3 hours, we're done with the sprint planning because we've done refinement. But we need to go through everyone to be sure everything is okay. Sometimes 2 hours, depending. But my team that we're just 7 in number, once we've done refinement, if we want to do sprint planning, 30 minutes, we're done. Sometimes 45 minutes max. So it just depends. So the fact that the standard is 2 hours per week, which is 4 hours for every 2 weeks, doesn't mean you compulsorily use the 2 hour, but that's the standard. Now, if you're exceeding 4 hours, then you know something is wrong. You just have to time box within. They're giving you a time box space, 4 hours within the sprint, because we need the other hours in that sprint to do development work. So you can't use all the hours for ceremony. So that's why we are time boxing it. That's why they are giving you standards of 4 hours, 2 hours, 1.5 hours, and then 15 minutes every day. So that's virtually you saying in a full sprint, you're going to be using like 8 hours plus on ceremonies. You're going to be using 8 hours plus. So the remaining 9 working days should be used fully for development work. So if you count 15 minutes every day, multiplied by 10, that's 150 minutes. That's roughly 2.5 hours. So add it. So you're using almost 10 hours self for ceremonies alone. So you need to be mindful of development work. It's standard, but you can use lesser. Sometimes if maybe things don't go right, it can be higher. Say, for example, I'll use a retro, for example. Usually retro is 1.5 hours, but sometimes you can exceed just by a little 10 minutes or something. But when you're doing this exceeding, you see, the way you put it down is what happens. So you're seeing it's 10 minutes to the end of the call. You're telling your team, guys, we have 10 minutes to go. Let's try and reduce our conversations. You keep going. When it's time, oh, we've already expended all our time, but however, I hope it's okay with the team if we use the next 5 minutes to wrap up. You know, you're having the team knows that you are being mindful of their time, that you're not a time waster. So even in a stand-up, say I've gone around my team and I have one person left, I can still, the 15 minutes has exceeded. Oh, sorry guys. The timeline is over for the stand-up, but please, we have just one more person. Let's take this and then we call it a day. You know, the person speaks, but you are making them aware that you know what you're doing, but you can't do this every time. So you just have to time box. It's not, like I said, it's not cast on. I don't know if you heard when I said it, when I was explaining the daily stand-up. It's not like you make them feel the rigidity, but this is a given standard. If you do it way lesser, that's fantastic as long as you achieve value. If you're doing it a bit more than the time, speak to your team. You guys have to find a way to reduce unnecessary conversations during the course of that ceremony, and also speak to your team members to be considerate of others when they're speaking here and here. Don't make it seem as if you're teaching them things. So let me point that out. You have to have conversation with your team. All of you have to have that understanding, acceptance to it. That's what builds a team agility. So you can always go below the time. If you're going to exceed, apologize, be mindful, because you're the one steering the wheel of that conversation. You're the one facilitating. You're the one making sure that conversation is even happening in the first place. So always carry your team along. I hope that's clear.
Very much clear, sir. Thank
Alrighty. Was it Biodo or somebody that was raising up their hands? Any other question before we call it today? We're done. Somebody's hands is still up somewhere. I think it's still Adeolu. Put down your hand.
Yes, please. Thank you for the informations. My question is just concerning the Scrum team. Let's say an organization has different products to develop. Is it that same particular Scrum team that is going to develop all those other products, or they're going to have different teams?
Okay, so in every organization, there are always different teams, and every team has sort of their own expertise and what they are doing. It depends on how large or small your organization is. let's say is Wumi and Co. Enterprises now. I might not have more than two teams. That's two full teams. So it depends on the project. I also look at the expertise before I assign project to them. Expertise and capacity before I say, okay, you know what, you guys do this project. This other team do this project. But when you have a very huge organization where everybody has different expertise, so that means every team has their expertise. So if a team is expert in a particular project, you assign that project to them. Now, if that team that you've assigned the project to them also there's a new project coming and there's no team to take up that new project, you can actually set up a new team to carry out that project. So it depends. Anything that works. Nothing is cast on concrete when it comes to these things. You just flow it how it comes. But before any project is assigned, we look at expertise, technical know-how, all those kind of things to make sure the team has the capacity to even do the project. And that's one of your main things you do as an ADM, a Scrum Master. When you are getting a project, make sure your team has the expertise to carry out the project. So if you bring a software team to come and handle a hardware project, I don't know how you want to correlate that. So a software team will handle a software project that probably even relates to what they're doing. Say, for example, is something relating to insurance. It's the people that have technical knowledge of insurance that will handle it. If the thing is relating to engineering, people that have, so it depends. So it depends on your team. I hope that's clear. I hope
Yes.
that's clear.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any other question before we wrap up? Thank you. Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. Oh, Juliet.
I had a question, sorry. I don't know if it's a bit of a funny one. So does Scrum ceremony have to be like a verbal meeting with everybody? Or I don't know, can it be held via email? I don't know. I'm just asking, just wondering.
Okay. I'm sorry if I probably did not paint the picture for you. So it's two ways. So it's a meeting. The same way we're having this meeting now. We can actually do
Yeah.
stand here and here. We can do, okay, let me give you an example. What you guys went to do in that your place now, for example, that's a meeting. So you can have it virtually because if you see most roles now, they'll tell you either fully remote or hybrid, or if you need to come in physically. So hybrid is maybe 3 days
No, I
online,
don't I
2 days.
don't mean physical or virtual. I mean, can you communicate what you need to communicate um via email, or does it have to be a verbal meeting, like
So
talk?
the
Yes,
ceremonies have to be
yes.
held virtually like this, how we are speaking,
Okay.
or physically if you guys go into the office. Now, for communication's sake, if it's not ceremony, because if, for example, we want to have a stand-up, for example, are we going to be throwing emails for the stand-up? No. We're going to gather in a meeting like this. How we set up time in you usually set up your team's calendar. You put in the meeting in their calendar. So once it's time, everybody clicks on that link and we join the call. Or if you're there physically in the office, you go together into a room. Okay, I think I explained it earlier. Sorry, I take back my sorry. We'll go physically into a room to have the conversation. So that's a
Yeah,
face-to-face. Or you do
yeah.
it virtually like this, but you are going to be speaking. It's not email, it's
Speaking.
not anything.
Okay.
The only time you use chat in this conversation is, say, for example, as we're having this meeting now, maybe Bolu wants to step out. Bolu can just type maybe be right back or tell us just give me 2 minutes, just an excuse on the chat so that she will not disrupt me that I'm talking. She'll put an excuse there. Maybe in 2 minutes when she's back, she can just put back that she's back. So at that 2 minute space, I'm not going to be asking Bolu any question because I know she's not listening on the call. She might still be on the call, but she has given us an excuse as she has stepped away. So we're just doing it virtually. We're having this discussion or we're doing face to face. That's where we do the meetings. And that's where we do stand up, not email. But you can use email to exchange information. You can use chat to exchange information, anything you want to do. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Alrighty. Who is the person that is D that just dropped their hands after Juliet? There's a D.
Sorry, I was about to ask a question and I thought I'd be answering myself.
We're actually not going to exceed this 11 because it's almost midnight in Nigeria.
Don't worry. I know the answer myself now.
Okay, so okay, you're okay. You have the answer. All
Yeah,
right. Thank you everyone for joining. Oh gosh,
sorry.
Oluwambe. No, it's fine. Thank you. Not you. It was Oluwambe. Oluwambe, quickly, please. Oluwambe. Oh, it can be Oluwambe. Oluwambe, hi.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. And
Thank you.
Salaomi, good evening. Thanks for the explicit lectures, please. Please, I just want to ask this question, please. Would there be any point, would there be any point where all the team members would disagree on a point? Like maybe if there's a program for maybe for non-organizations, and maybe at some point why the team members sit down to think of what to say or do. So would there be any points where everyone would disagree on a point? Thank you.
All right. I'm tempted to tell Bolu or Moji to respond to this question because me, I'll throw blue. Moji, Bolu, any one of you, take it off. I just want somebody else to speak so that they can hear me. Please, 1 minute because we are going to end this call shortly. Bolu, Moji, any one of you?
I actually did not hear the question. Sorry.
It's fine. His question is there any
Hi,
time?
yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
Moji, go ahead.
there is always hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I'm rounding the whole thing he said up and seeing it as a conflict within the team. So definitely you will have conflict within your team. Remember, you are experts in your own field and you have your different opinions. And there's no way you collaborate, sorry, as a team and you won't have conflicts. You will have different opinions that you need to talk about. And that's where the Scrum Master comes in. Because one of the skills of a Scrum Master is for you to be able to resolve conflicts within your team. So you'll be able to hear everyone. If the conflict arises from while you are in one of your Scrum meetings and you know that okay, if it starts and you feel okay, it's something that people are giving their opinion, we can resolve it, that's fine. But if you need to have a foresight to know that okay, if I don't put a stop to this now, it's going to escalate into something bigger than that, and that's not the purpose of the meeting. Most important thing is for you to put a stop to it, focus the team back to the main purpose of that meeting. Ensure that they are focused on the main thing we're discussing about and not different opinions coming in. And there's every possibility that such conflict goes beyond that meeting, even if you're able to kind of put it on hold or put a stop to it at the meeting and the meeting continues. If you feel that it's a conflict whereby you think it's still going to go ahead, you can meet either of the party that are having that conflict one-on-one separately first, hear their opinions, and then you're able to identify at times where the root cause is. And then you can bring the two of them, not with the whole team again now, the two of them together to, I won't say iron things out, but because you know where the root cause is, what the cause of the matter, to have a discussion and meet on a common ground. At times it could be two QAs. At times it could be the QA and the developer. At times it could be the developer and the BA. But you will always have a conflict within your team. Be prepared for that because it will happen also during this internship. So Scrum Masters, be prepared to resolve conflict is one of the skills you need to have. It's one of your responsibilities in your team, and it's mainly a question you can't escape at times at interview. So yeah, you will have conflict, but you need to know how to manage conflict, how to resolve conflicts, which is one of the things you would, like I said, you would come in contact with, but don't worry about it. You have your mentors and you have your buddies that would also guide you on how to resolve it, even if you don't know how to do it.
Thank you, Moji. Always spot on. Thanks, everyone. Max, we're not supposed to take this question. Please, quickly, so that we can call it a night.
Thank you
you
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought maybe I should wait before, but I just feel it's better for me to clarify now. I want to know, please, in the Scrum team, where is the role of an ADM, Agile Delivery Manager or Agile Project Manager? Because even when you were talking about the ceremonies during the sprint, I mean the review, I cannot see you. You only mentioned three persons who are part of the review team, majorly the PO, the SM, and the other person. So how does ADM play his role in the Scrum team? I would like to understand that properly. Thank you.
Okay. Moji, do you want to take that? I have a
Okay,
reason
that's
for
fine.
Moji to take it.
All right,
Because
quickly, Naomi did explain while she was, I think,
thank
while she
you.
was talking about the Scrum event when she showed that chart, that the ADM is not a member of the Scrum team. So she's not in, or he or she is not in the team, the Scrum team. She's outside. So she works with the Scrum team, yeah, as a delivery person. So the Scrum Master facilitates Scrum process for the team, guides them through the Scrum process, helps them to understand and work with the Scrum process. Okay, so everybody you see in the Scrum team, the PO, the developer, software developer, the testers, the BA, they are all experts on their own field. Okay. And if they need to use the Scrum framework, Agile framework to do what they need to do to get value out of it, they need somebody who knows about it, who is an evangelist, so to say, of Scrum to put them through. And that is the job of a Scrum Master. So that's why that name, combination of that name, Scrum, and the Master of Scrum, to put them through, to guide them. So he's not managing them, he's not dictating, he's just guiding them through using that process, sorry, so to say. So the Scrum Master focuses on the Scrum process that the team is using. An Agile delivery manager, yours is to focus on the delivery. So there is a roadmap. You're communicating with the team. Most times the Scrum Master, but you can communicate with the team members also if you need to know, are we in line with the timeline, the way things are going, are we able to deliver? So your focus is delivery. Everything that needs to be done to help the team to deliver to timeline for the user, for the stakeholder, who can be the project sponsor or the client. That is what your focus is. That is what you're looking at. That is where you're working through. So now you're not just a delivery manager, you're an agile delivery manager. So you understand the agile process also, and being able to work together with the Scrum Master, as I've said, to know why are we going to be late, so that we tell the stakeholders on time. You know, when Laomi was talking earlier on, she said because we're using Agile, Agile is all about agility, flexibility, being able to change that. Those are some of the principles of Agile, okay? But at times, you are the one at times that faces the stakeholders at times and tell them, hey, if you keep changing things the way you're changing, if you keep changing your requirements, you let them know that there might be possibility that we would not be able to produce or to deliver to timeline. So if we told you that we're going to do this thing within 6 months, and every time we do a review, you're changing your mind, say, I want to change it to this another, fine, you can change. But also let them know the truth, the fact that because we keep on changing, yeah, there's every possibility that we'll need to extend the timeline. Now, that's your role as delivery person. Talking to the team and also talking to the people outside the team, which is the stakeholders or any other department within the organization that needs to work hand in hand to make that delivery a success to the client.
Okay. Okay.
All
Oh,
right.
thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
So much, Moji. And that's one of the another skill of a Scrum Master, shielding your team. You need to be that mouthpiece to your team to make your team survive this. I was going to say good night again, and Aminat, you did this to me. Aminat, quickly. Quickly, please.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just going to say the explanation you've been giving, is it like using a race matrix model where the Scrum Master is to be consulted. He may not really participate in implementing things in the project, but he needs to be consulted.
Yes, it's fine if you want to use racing metrics for all this. But at this point, it is not even about that. On which question, is it on this max question you're asking about the racy, or on which question are you asking about the matrix? So I can relate it exactly to what
I mean the role of the Scrum Master.
Okay, so the role of the Scrum Master, yes, you can apply racing metrics, but sometimes the Scrum Master might just even be informed on something. Sometimes they can just be consulted on something, so it doesn't matter. And there are some things that a Scrum Master will be accountable for. There are some things that a Scrum Master is responsible for. So it depends. When For example, when it comes to development work, for example, the Scrum Master is not responsible, but the Scrum Master will be held accountable, if you're not guiding your team to do the needful. It just depends. Everything is interwoven. I don't see why we should put in RACI to this, but yes, RACI happens in between everything. Sometimes you might have one or two items on the RACI that affect a particular thing. So it depends. But yes, I get your point.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining in. We'll catch each other again tomorrow by 8 o'clock, and hopefully we'll time box better. And let's have a lovely night. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Good night.
so much.